After Joe Biden stepped down from the U.S. presidential race, many of you wrote in asking what I thought of it all, particularly what I thought about Biden stepping down and Kamala Harris stepping up. To recap, I was horrified by Joe Biden's obvious decline in mental health. I never wanted him to be president in the first place, though I voted for him against Trump, obviously. And, I never really liked Kamala Harris either because, she's a cop, metaphorically. And yet, guys, I am so temporarily relieved. I am so very relatively happy. And yes, I know both relieved and happy got modifiers, but it's still better than my previous state of researching which Canadian city is the least cold. I know that it's a meme that libs always bluff that they're going to leave the country if Trump wins, but the other day, Instagram's algorithm actually served me a real estate ad for a tackle shop in Tofino, so I think that means it's serious. Fun fact, Tofino is the surfing capital of Canada because one time a surfer got in the water and stayed there for 10 minutes before dying of hypothermia. It was flat the whole 10 minutes, but you take what you can get. Anyway, I had already assumed that if Biden stepped down, Harris would be the one to step up due to campaign finance laws and also the terrible optics if the Dems skipped over the VP to pick a possibly more popular white man. But I was still apprehensive. If Harris did get her chance, would her team be able to launch her? Would they be hamstrung by Democrat moderates with latent bigotry against anyone they see as not normal, i.e., a white guy? But honestly, when it all happened, those fears were curbed, let's say. The enthusiasm for Harris has been great. The memes have been decent. And I gotta say, the weird talking point, glorious. I remember 20 years ago seeing how Republicans all lined up behind whatever talking points the leadership put out, like literally every day on every news network. And I would always wonder if one day I would live to see the Democrats do that. And it's happening and it's fun. The right wing is furious. They cannot deal with the weird accusation, and it's very funny to see them try.
At a young age, and they haven't had the ability, like for instance, Jazz Jennings can never have kids. Jazz Jennings also, and this probably part of your studies, can't actually feel any sexual feeling of any kind.
Do you have any idea how weird this sounds right now? Like, why are you obsessing with a stranger's genital pleasure? That's so weird. That's so bizarre.
That was very weird yourself.
You guys are all layers.
No. So I'm talking about adults who engage in activities, which is a large portion of the global economy, whether you like it or not. Sure. Sex sells, they say. And when I say this person will never have this ability, you go, how weird is that?
It's weird for you to fixate on a stranger's genital pleasure. That's strange. That's so bizarre.
I say all this because, a lot of you are asking, and also because I wanted to talk about how I started working on this video before Biden stepped down, and I kind of had to rewrite it due to an overwhelming sense of optimism that we might actually have a chance of avoiding a Trump dictatorship this fall. And it's a candidate who progressives might actually be able to bully into instituting our little pet policies, like stopping the U.S. from supporting a genocide currently happening in Gaza, little things like that. Originally, this video was going to be pretty dark. The idea was this: we have to prepare for a Trump dictatorship and figure out how we will continue to fight regardless. Okay, I probably wasn't going to move to Tofino to sell fishing gear. I'm too stubborn for that. We all know it. Anyway, now this video is still about that, but more optimistic. We do still need to be prepared for what happens in case Trump wins in November, even though I think that possibility is now greatly lessened. And I want to highlight at least one way that some people are already preparing that fight. So first, a quick reminder of what Trump did after taking office in 2017. only as it relates to the environment. According to research from Harvard Law School, Columbia Law School, and other sources, Trump rolled back more than 100 environmental protection rules, most of which were done through the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, like removing limits on planet-warming carbon dioxide emissions from power plants and from cars and trucks, removing protections from more than half the nation's wetlands, and withdrawing the legal justification for restricting mercury emissions from power plants. This has led to a significant increase in greenhouse gas emissions over the next decade and thousands of extra deaths from poor air quality each year. Of course, Trump's choice to lead the EPA, as I talked about way back then, was Scott Pruitt, an oil and gas industry lobbyist whose previous work with the EPA involved him repeatedly suing them to stop them from doing their job of protecting the environment. By the end of his first year in office, Trump had encouraged hundreds of EPA employees to quit, including at least 200 scientists, while Pruitt increased the number of political appointees. If you'll recall from my previous video, increasing political appointees is one of the many disturbing aspects of Project 2025, which is the Heritage Foundation's roadmap for Trump should he win in November. That's because if you are an anti-science bigot president and you have to fill a position with the person most qualified to do the job of science, they may not go against all their training in order to do whatever you tell them to do, like announce that climate change is a Chinese hoax. But if you can fill positions with people based entirely on how much they can pretend to love the taste of your asshole, the possibilities are endless. Trump has vowed to institute the plan and move tens of thousands of employees into positions that would be basically at-will employment, meaning that they can just be fired whenever he wants. If you'd like to know more reasons to get out and vote against Trump and every Republican on the ballot this November, please go watch my full video about Project 2025. But for now, I'm going to move on to the good news. Just a few weeks ago, employees at the EPA secured a huge win, approving a 4-year deal that replaces the contract that Trump forced on all of them when he took office. The new contracts increase the number of days they can work from home from 2 days to 8 days per 2-week period, and also stipulates that the organization has to set up a number of pilot programs to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. But most importantly, the new contracts establish a strict appeals process for any employee at the EPA who is fired or otherwise retaliated against for pursuing science-based work. If the agency is completely captured by an administration that is hostile to science, there'd be nowhere for an employee to go if they're retaliated against for speaking up for science or scientific integrity. What the contract article allows is for an independent arbiter to find whether or not the agency did that and would order the agency to take certain actions to stop that from happening. And how did the EPA employees get this safeguard established? Via their union. That's where that quote comes from one of the union organizers. EPA employees are represented by the American Federation of Government Employees, and that collective action allowed them to come together to get these essential protections put into place. Because remember in that Project 2025 video how I pointed out that Republicans hide their agenda because their policies are deeply unpopular? Well, unions are the opposite. Unions can only work with the will of the people in them, the will of the people they represent, which is why they are one important answer to how we can topple these lone, unpopular authoritarians. There are more of us than there are of them. They want you to work overtime for no more pay, drink dirty tap water, and breathe in pollutants. Unions want you to get paid a living wage and enjoy your weekend. That's right, weekends. Thanks to unions, we have weekends. I cannot stress this enough. Whatever field you work in, if there is a union you can join, you probably should. Unions are good for you and good for society as a whole. Except for police unions. Police unions aren't real unions, but that's another video for another day. I'm doing a lot of cop bashing in this video. Anyway, I'm very happy the EPA employees secured this contract, but I do have to mention it's not a cure-all against a looming theocratic dictatorship. With the amount of power the U.S. Supreme Court has handed to the President of the United States, it's entirely possible Trump will be able to get around these protections. But here's the takeaway, in my opinion. Even if Trump wins in November, we don't have to make things easy for him. We can erect these barriers that will slow him down. We can use every tool we have to make his life and the life of every person in his administration absolutely miserable. We can join unions. We can set up ironclad contracts. We can support abortion funds. We can harass our Democratic representatives to expand the Supreme Court or to impose term limits, to amend the Constitution, to overturn that immunity ruling that basically makes Trump a lifelong powerful God emperor should he win. Look, I know despair. Despair is inevitable because, we live our lives steeped in every bit of bad news that flits through the gray algorithm. But despair doesn't actually help anyone. Giving up doesn't help anyone. So I'm encouraging you to please follow my lead. Don't give up. Get off Canadian Zillow. Get back in the game. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.